The temple vessels are in Jerusalem.
Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Aaron Sokol, and you're watching Parsha Inspired. Have we found the temple vessels? We're here with Rabbi Harry Herschel Moskoff, who has spent decades searching for the lost artifacts from the temple. So have we found the lost vessels?
Well, we know where they are. It's coming very soon. Each day, each week, we're getting closer. And there's a bunch of incredible things that have happened recently that are really getting us to that point. What's happening basically now, there's two things. There's, if you trace what happened to the temple vessels, the second temple vessels, after the temple was destroyed and went to Rome. So the history of it brings it back to Yerushalayim, and it traces the whole history of how they got to this place called the Nia Maria Church in the 6th century, which is at the very end of the Cardo in Yerushalayim. Justinian, who built the Nia Maria Church, actually found out that the Arabs were coming, the Persians, in the year 614, to come and destroy Yerushalayim, take over Yerushalayim for the Christians. And then later the Arab marauders. So he sent those vessels to two places. Back then, in the times of the Byzantine times, there were only two real churches, basilicas, that could hold those items. The big items, according to my research, as I mentioned in the Vatican and me, the larger items went to a place in Rahabia, which is still there today. It's like the best kept secret. It's a field in Rahabia, and it hasn't been touched for 2,000 years. There was a farmer in 1929, right here in Israel, obviously in Rahabia area. And he was farming and plowing his land with an Arab. Suddenly they fall into a cave about 3 to 5 meters deep. In that cave, once his eyes got used to the darkness, he sees the actual Kalim in the base of Mikdash. And he's in shock, and he falls in. The Arab also realizes that there's gold, there's precious things here. He wants it for himself, without getting into details which are not at all for the boss, which I heard from the family itself. The Jew, I'm not sure if he was religious, but the farmer ends up coming out. He closes up the pit, makes a map, marks everything on the map, and then holds the secret to himself. So the question is asked, why didn't he tell the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, who I think back then was Rabbi Levine? He said that apparently he writes that he was afraid that it would get leaked out somehow, that someone would find on the map. So he goes all the way to his daughter, which back then took a long time, in New York. He asks his daughter, "What should I do? Is it time yet? It's too much for me to bear." Apparently, he exclaimed that with that kind of a secret, a person, it's hard for a person to actually hold on to that kind of information. Is it time yet to reveal the Kalim to the Jews, for Mashiach? So he says, this is above my pay grade, as so to speak. And so her daughter says, let's go to the tzaddik over here in the Lower East Side. His name is Yaakov Herman. Goes there, he presents him with the map, tells him what happened, and he vets him out. Maybe this guy's faking it, maybe it's fake news. He says, no, this guy's for real. This really happened, but it's beyond me. I'm going to send it to the Chametz Chaim. So the tzaddik, Yisrael Meir Kagan, who was a Kohen, he lived in Radin in Poland, and his son happened to be going to the Mir Yeshiva, which is not too far away. So he sends a telegram to his son, along with the map. It says, go travel by train to Radin. He goes by train. He meets the Chametz Chaim. He shows him the map, tells him the whole story. Is it time yet? That's the question. So the Chametz Chaim looks at it. He goes into a study for either half an hour or up to 3 hours, and whichever version you want to believe. Comes out and says, you know what? You're right. This really is the place. You've got it right, but it's not yet time. He destroys the map. I'm sorry, it's not time for this to happen. And he sends him back. Not only that, by the way, but the Chametz Chaim tells him, you're going to forget this happened. Not only you, but the farmer himself is going to forget this whole thing happened until he dies. Then you'll remember the story, until the farmer dies. That way, the secret will never be let out. Sure enough, many years later, he's learning in Lakewood, the son of Yaakov Herman, and suddenly he remembers, oh my gosh, there's a cave in Rahabia, and all this stuff really exists. And he finds out that, yes, that day the farmer died. Anyway, so get this, okay? The story gets even more incredible. I'm writing the manuscript for the book, and I sent it to, I won't say his name. He was recommended to me, a good typesetter, a copy editor, religious guy, Kolal Avrech, to help me with my book. And he writes me, he says, I met this story, page 95 in the ARC report. And is it really like, you're talking about the story, right? The farmer story in Alpha the Boss. I said, yes, you should know. He says to me, my wife, her best friend is Ruchama Shane's daughter. And she was there at this family meeting. By the way, Pinchas Steinberg married into the family, and he himself knew, Lava Shalom, he knew the secret to where this cave is, okay? So he tells me, I still have the email. He tells me, listen, Rabbi Moskoff, Herschel, like, this is the landmark. I remember my wife came back to me and said, I know more info about the story. They were discussing it. Should they go for it? Should they locate it? Should they advertise it? Should they go to the government? He says, this is what I remember. This is the landmark. And don't forget, this is back in the Ottoman period, before the state of Israel. So it has to be landmarks that are going way back. And this is where it is. And on the other opposite side is another landmark. Anyway, so he's telling me this. So of course, me being, investigative archaeologist and overly curious, for better, for worse, journalist. So I'm looking for this place. Okay. It took me about 2 years going from different places which have similar landmarks. And I actually, I did all my, all of the topographical, archaeological. I was in touch with the IAA, Israel Antiquities Authority, and we found the place. We really did. And incredible as it is, we found the place in Rahabia, and it's there today. And I've been there many times, by the way.
This story, when you found the location, what year was that when you found this field?
What year was this? So this was about when I finally got to the right spot about 2 years ago, when I started writing The Vatican and Me. When it came out around that time, also about a year ago.
This is recent, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, it's recent. Like I went to a whole bunch of different places that had similar landmarks. Finally, Ashkacha Pratis cited Shmaya. I ended up finding this place, and the next step for me is to do the testing, right? Sort of like a metal detector on this field. And there's all kinds of other incredible technologies, and I looked into that. So I need to find out who the owner is. So I found out the owner is a company called Extel in New York City, Extel Developments. They ended up buying it from the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate, which, by the way, owns huge tracts of land in Israel. But they're completely broke, Baruch Hashem. They get no money from Greece. So so now they're selling off for the past 15 years. And then also Ateret Kohanim is involved. But they've been selling off, thank God, land, including land right under the Knesset. In fact, the Knesset is built on land that's owned by the Vatican.
Now, how do you know for sure that this is the location?
Well, we went through, first of all the historians. Procopius, he writes, and it's all in my book there. In his writings, he dictates, he actually witnesses, dictates actually where everything came from, where, from the time of the Second Temple, the destruction in 70 AD, over to Rome 400 years, and then from there to Carthage, which is the capital of the Vandals, for 80 years. And then he writes, and went from there, Justinian took over that area, and then it went to Byzantium, which is Constantinople, where it was there for all the Kali for about 20 years. And he talks all about it, War of the Vandals, all these different historical books. It's in the Oxford Library. There's a couple of books there in the Oxford Library that say, and then Theodopolis, another historian, writes that from there, Justinian sent it for various reasons, which is also an amazing story. He started becoming ill, and Byzantium, his empire was starting to crumble, and he had a Jewish minister who told him, "Look, the reason why this is happening is because you have the Kelim of the Jews, which by the way was in a place called the Hippodrome, which is still visible today outside of Istanbul. Constantinople is present day Istanbul." And from there, so he said, you know what? you're right. I'm going to send all of this, everything that happened to Rome and the Vandals. It's all because they had the Caleb, and the God of Israel doesn't want his vessels in the land of the Goyim. So he sent it back, and he built this church, this massive church, Nehemiah Church. And you can see it, like I said today. And he sent it. It's in fact, all the historians, everybody agrees, and ended up there. How do we know that that place at the end of the corridor was the Nehemiah Church? There's a place called the Radaba Map in Jordan. That's the name of the city. It was discovered about 200 years ago or so. It's huge. It's on the side of this church in mosaic, and it has the whole Middle East. It's an amazing thing. I have a picture of it in my book as well. And there it says Nehemiah Church, and it says the Cardo. It has the old city of Jerusalem, and it puts it there. So we know for sure that that was the Nehemiah. We know for sure that the Arabs took it over, the Persians in the early 7th century. And we know that Justinian sent a letter saying to the monks over there, get rid of all the Caleb because he doesn't want the Arabs to take it. Now the question is, where did it go? So I traced this for months, and I found essentially there's a couple different opinions, different historians in Oxford, and but I'm the only religious Jew speaking English from a Torah perspective.
And you're a
Okay.
rabbi, so you have the advantage of the Talmud and the
Exactly.
little known Kabbalistic and other sources that spread light
Exactly.
onto why the Christians are holding on to them, and when we get them back, what this signifies. So this is
Right, exactly. These obscure midrashim and things that I went through that point to two places. One of them is St. Anne's Church, which was one of the only Byzantinian edifices. What you see now is a Crusader structure, but inside is a basilica. That was there back then in the
building is 12th century.
yeah, yeah. Even before that, even before that. Byzantinian didn't last 1,000 years, but in Byzantium itself, like in Istanbul, Turkey itself, it was only 100, 120 years, whatever, 4th century. So back then, and this Nehemiah Church, there was that one, there was another one in Rahabia, so we know that it went to both of those places because that's the only places that have these landmarks that I was given by this guy who his wife was actually there. I heard it from the daughter of Rucham. So it has a personal, for me, it's personal. You know what I mean? It's not just like historical finding for me. For somehow Hashem, Ruch Hashem, he gave me this the facts, like the coordinates. You know what I mean? To go ahead with this. So later on, once I
This was
had
a preliminary thing that you already had a theory that it
right,
possibly could be at St. Anne, and you said,
right,
let me research and see if I could find any documents supporting my thesis. And
exactly.
did that happen?
Yes, it did. Sejah Shmaya, it happened, and a bunch of other things too on the side. But the main thing with this location in Rahabia is that I ended up going to New York, traveling to New York, a meeting with the head executives and CEO of Extel. And by the way, Extel is Jewish religious. Okay, just so happens they acquired. Yeah, that is a wow. So they acquired the land through a bunch of intermediaries from this Greek patriarchate. Okay, so I met with them about testing the land and told them how I got there, and they have a huge schus. Now, half of the land still belongs to the Greek Patriarchate, but you have to, and the JNF. It's a whole complicated thing in courts. Uh, I've been also, I spoke with the JNF and the Greek oil, and we're all in discussions over here. But for me, it's like it's sort of like non-invasive. I just want to do the testing and geological survey and find out which cave it is. So we're that close, Rabbi, we're that close, literally. I have people that, now that want to go on tours, so I can show them the place, which doesn't bother me personally. I've been there many times and I spoke with the people in charge. You want the real MS? Why they're not, they used to know before 1948, there were some monks that knew exactly which cave that are there on the spot. So, but they were killed by the Arabs, unfortunately. And after that, that secret was lost. Now, there are caves. Exactly, there's about a dozen caves in that area. I've been to them. It's a great place to daven. And it's just a matter of time that one of us, myself most likely, will go there. And the question is, what happens next? Once we see, once the buzzer goes off and there's a huge amount of, we know this is the cave, then what? That's the
Well,
question.
okay, so let's put that on hold for a second because that mystery is right now about to burst open, like you said. It's
Yeah,
about
it's a shame.
everything's in the right place. We've already acquired the land by a Jewish company. We've already ascertained that this most likely is the place that the Chafetz Chaim said many of the vessels are buried.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
but at the same time, there's other discoveries at other locations happening.
True.
So maybe you could tell us about what other locations are of interest. We mentioned
Sure.
Rahabia, Saint Anne. What happened at Saint
Sure.
Anne?
Okay. So again, Rahabia, don't forget, Rahabia is just 100 years ago. It's not like they had people, thieves and whatnot with these caves, and they did steal a lot. Archaeological theft and trafficking is huge, unfortunately, in Israel. It's a big problem. But so that's just 100 years ago. Now, this story with St. Anne's Church, which, by the way, you can see it. I was there as a, Christian tourist with a cap, doing my job, like investigating this kind of thing. By the way, I got a heter to do these things, including going into the Vatican, because I was told by different rabbanim, including the chief rabbi, the former chief rabbi, Rabbi Yitzhak Yosef, that what I'm doing is can be compared to pidyon shvuim. It's like these vessels are pidyon shvuim, need to be redeemed, like redeemed captives that need to be brought back to Israel to Jewish, ownership. Ad kedei kach.
We
So
permit buying land on Shabbos to tell a guy
exactly,
to do something to redeem land and to redeem the kalim of the Mishkan, or the Mikdash, even though we don't necessarily need them to start, but it will definitely kickstart a worldwide revival of a consciousness of Third Temple consciousness. We sit on Tisha
100%.
B'av, and this can really ignite that. So let's hear the story.
Right. Okay. So, by the way, the Ramban says exactly what you said. The Talmidim of Ramban said once these kelim are found, it'll be a catalyst for Mashiach. So anyway, so a true story. Okay. Now this is not going back even 100 years. This is going back. It happened shortly after the 6-Day War. What happened was this church of St. Anne's of Bethesda, which is in the Via Dolorosa area. So they had a whole bunch of Byzantine coins, a huge collection of Byzantine coins, and they needed them to be assessed for their value. So they contacted a professor, a numismatic,
Numerologist.
yeah, it was a numismatic professor or someone, I think that's the way you say it. It's a special professor who actually deals with assessing rare and old ancient coins, the numismatic, something like that. Anyway, he worked for the Israel Museum and also at Hebrew U. His name is Rabbi Yaakov, won't say his last name, but so they contacted him, and then we had the 6-Day War, and then years went by. Finally, there was a period of calm, and he said, "You know what? I can go to the old city, and I'll do this for you. I'll assess the coins for you." Of course, they're paying him. He finally gets to St. Anne's Church, and he goes inside, and he talks to the monks, which, by the way, are called the White Fathers. They wear all white for some reason. Anyway, they're monks. And he gets inside and gets into this room, and they lock him into the room for 3 hours. Okay. They do that because he said there's tourists and there's whatever services, and they don't want him to be disturbed. So they actually lock him in. So he finishes in 2 hours. Okay. This is what he writes in his manuscript. And he's wondering, he knocks on the doors, nobody there, he can't get out. So he's there's no cell phones, there's nothing for him to do really, you know. So he looks around and he's whatever, looking on the wall, and he sees this door that's hidden. Say secret door, I don't know. It's hidden. He finally finds the handle, pushes it open. There's a staircase going 2-story. Okay, didn't happen so long ago. Goes to the 60s, the late 60s. Goes down the stairs. It's dark room, pitch dark, but he starts to see some glimmering, some light. He sees a room in the middle of the table. Sorry, a table in the middle of the room with these small artifacts on it. He looks closely, goes up to them with Hebrew writing on it. And he pitches himself, and he actually says these words. He says, "Oh my God, these are the temple." He says the temple kelim, the temple vessels, are in Jerusalem. That's what he says.
What
The
did he say? I'm
temple,
sorry, I missed it.
he says the temple vessels are in Jerusalem. That's what he says, in Hebrew. הכלים של בית המקדש פה בירושלים. And he's looking at, now these are smaller vessels. These are like the mizrak, chatzotzrot, like the trumpets that were in the temple. Other smaller kelim that more had to do like the ashtrays and the rakes for the mizbeach, things like that. So, and there's dozens of them on this table.
And they could be identified easily. You can
Yes.
see
Oh, you can
that.
see it. You can see it's a mizrak for throwing the blood on the altar, sacrificial altar, the mizbeach, all these things. He himself, he wasn't religious, but he identified them for sure. It had Hebrew writing on them, gold, silver, copper. After 2,000 years, it's green already. I held one of these things actually in my hands, machta, an incense shovel.
That was a terrible story, what happened with that incident. The one that they
Yeah,
found with the Palestinian, and they gave it back to the Palestinian
yeah,
Authority.
yeah.
That's a horrible, because they did find something that was clearly Jewish. It was clearly
Oh,
Second Temple. We'll
yeah,
get to that in a second. Like, let's continue with this story, because
yeah.
we're going to lose the audience. Okay, so
Right. I
he's
know.
at this table and he notices these vessels and he says, "This is Second Temple, First Temple,
Yeah,
Second Temple."
100%.
And the thing for the blood, it's got to have a point at the end, because you
Right.
don't want to put it down. You don't want
That's
the
right.
blood. So he's looking at the temple vessels. Okay,
Right. Has to coagulate, whatever. He has to keep tuning it. So he looks at it. Suddenly, about a minute later, they come in, the monks come in, and he yells, just starts screaming at him, "You're not allowed to be there. Yeah, this is, you have no permission." They unceremoniously, I would say, take him out, uh, put him outside, and say, "Thank you very much." When he gets the report, and that's the end of it. Okay. Here's something interesting that happened. Okay, a year later, the whole Byzantine collection of coins is stolen.
suspicious.
Yes.
That's the insurance policy. They bring a Jew in.
You're
Okay,
gonna kick me out? Okay, Anyway, so it's mama's stolen. So what the police contact him, the same Professor Yaakov, and say, "Listen, we need a new report. We need a report on how the assessment that you made. We need it back. Can you give it to us?" So he says to them, "Listen, that's fine, but on condition that you these monks take me back to that room that I was in when I was doing the assessment, downstairs into that basement." So they approach the monks, and the monks say, "We don't know what you're talking about. We have no idea. You're just making things up." Of course, he didn't give them the assessment, nothing. And he says they're the biggest bluffers in the world, like quote unquote. But he had, I think, a more harif word, and that I won't say on the air. But they were definitely not telling the truth, and that's the way it stands. And get this, to make it even more personal, all right? So I post this video, which was a part of the first one to interview me about it was Israel 365, Berkowitz, and a good friend of mine. So it's on YouTube, and someone writes on YouTube, okay, one of the comments, you can see it today. I think it's called the temple items in the bottom of a church or something like that. Anyway, he writes in the comments, "I was in this professor's class at Hebrew University," and he says the whole name, Yaakov, whatever, and he's not alive anymore. But I was in this class, and he told us this story, and the Kaylee were there for sure, and I can attest to it. And he was very upset with that he wouldn't let him back in, and he puts down, achad achad, what happened there, and it's in the comments. You can look it up on YouTube on this interview. So that's just going back to the late '60s. So whatever, 80 years, whatever it is, a
they
little
have
more.
a theological problem, because if the Vatican, and you've spent 4 years or many years, I don't know, 4 years, but you've been traveling to the Vatican, you've met with the Pope, and you've met with different officials inside of the Vatican, and you've always got the impression that if they know that if they reveal these artifacts, and you're working on a program to actually get some of these artifacts back as a trade with museums with some type of condition. I
Change,
guess
yeah,
I think what you're trying to do, and if I correct me if I'm wrong, are you like opening up a door that we can like untangle this mess because we're a win-win situation where it doesn't seem so bad for the church. So maybe you can
right.
talk about, once we've discovered, like you said, two locations in Jerusalem, both in Rahabia and in the Old City in the Cordo at the St. Anne Church, which Yaakov clearly believes
No, it's in the St. Anne's Church in the Christian Quarter. Yeah,
in the
go ahead.
Christian Quarter. Okay, yeah. So how does this take us to the Vatican? Like, how
Okay,
does this add up with, testimony that the temple treasures are in the Vatican? Is it
right.
possible that there are multiple locations?
For sure, for sure. I'll tell you why. It's a good question. And you're absolutely right, Aaron. That's why I started it's called the Jewish Heritage Project. And it's basically taking what started with Byzantinian items. That's how the whole project started. Jewish Byzantinian items, like antiquities that go back over 1,000 years, and Turkey and Syria, etc., and getting those out of the Vatican. They're part of the Papal Heritage Collection. By the way, I didn't actually meet the Pope. I met some of his directors and secretaries and the people that have to do with the Vatican museums and relationships between Catholics and Jews. All these backdoor channels of diplomacy, including the ambassadors. By the way, every time I go to Rome, I meet with our ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the Holy See, and ambassador to Italy, and it's all sort of the government, the Israeli government. They're sort of like silently behind what I'm doing, and it's totally bipartisan. Like left and right are both totally into this. Surprisingly, it's amazing. But that's the whole idea behind the Jewish Heritage Project, to bring first the Byzantinian items out, and then Benenu, as they say, then that'll open doors, as you said, to other things. The other, like, Byzantinian era was the Tkufa that happened right after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. So, once you do that, you can go backwards, you can go forwards. And by the way, the Vatican officially now, if you ask them straight out, a cardinal, let's say, or an archbishop, the archbishop to Jerusalem, the nuncio, if you ask him, listen, does the Vatican have, straight out, the temple treasures? He will neither confirm it nor deny it. That's the official policy now. For many centuries, Aaron, they were just denying it. But they know now. Like I told them personally, I said to them, listen, and I've been down there for stories, at the Vatican. Um, I told them, listen, we know we have the capabilities, IDF, we have satellite, we have Mossad, for God's sake. If we wanted to, and then it's no question about it, the government knows that they have the vessels, and like you said, there's duplicates, there's triplicates, the menorah. I didn't see it myself, but it's almost 100% the menorah is there, other large items, and I'll tell you why. Uh, the question I get asked most in lectures and interviews is, listen, you say that from Rome the Vandals took it, and then it came back and it ended up in St. Anne's Church, and it ended up in this place in Rahabia, in this cave. But so how did the Vatican get it? Wasn't it taken by the Vandals? The answer is the Vandals took everything that was in the Temple of Peace, right? For 400 years, they displayed all the temple items in the menorah and all the other, the lechem apanim, etc., big items in the Temple of Peace. But when Titus came back with all these items, his father, Vespasian, the emperor, decided that he wanted some items to keep for himself. Now, this is fact. Josephus writes it in Wars of the Jews, and Procopius writes it, that he took, it's a fact, Vespasian took and put in his palace several items. What are they? The parochet, the giant curtain that was in the second temple, which, by the way,
There's
still
eye,
has a tear in it. Yeah, go
there's
ahead.
eyewitnesses who have seen this. The
Yes,
parochus inside a glass
very good.
glass.
Glass container. Yeah,
So I mean,
they're like
imagine the enormity of a picture of the actual parochus with the tear in it, like what that would do to the whole world if you were if you were able to reveal that to that
lullaby.
picture,
It's a
would awaken in so many people a love for Hashem, a love for the Jewish people, a love because
Exactly.
like just these items are, we don't need the parochas, but to witness it and to see it,
Sure.
it's taking Eretz Yisrael to the next level. This is
100%. You're right. That's our whole idea, is to bring the Shekhinah back, Dir Tachtonim, to get us. And if you see a picture of me, anybody, even the most unreligious Jew, or even others, Christians, they see this where the Shekhinah was actually there on any of these kelim, and it's a discussion, maybe we'll get to it, whether there's Me'ila or not. But it would, I think a lot of people would make Aliyah right away. I really think it would be a huge burst of inspiration. Anyway, Vespasian, before I don't want to get too far, but
yeah.
he he took the parochet for himself, the menorah. Don't forget, like you said, there were 2 or 3 menorahs.
Lomo had 10.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion how he was able to do that, and at 10 also lechem panim. Right, but that's the first temple. So this is the second temple. There were only a couple of them, and he took a bunch of other things as well. Part of a Sefer Torah, apparently, and one other thing. Besides that, the parochet. Oh, and the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol, the golden diadem, for sure. Those
The
things he wanted.
Gemara says that there was a rabbi who went to
Ah,
Rome and he
ah,
saw, there's a question how the word name of Hashem was written. Was it written in
right,
2 lines or 1 line? And one
right.
of the rabbis said, I was in Rome and I saw it. So there we have something that's not so long ago telling us exactly
Yeah,
where it is.
yeah.
So there's like, it's not a question.
Right. There's actually 4 places in the Gemara where it says that Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yochai, Rabbi Shalom, and Rabbi Eliezer, and they went over there to the Rome, to the emperor's house. They said the story of how he healed the daughter, and in return, Vespasian, the other hand, another emperor, they showed him the kelim, that they showed the menorah and the parochet. So for sure, we have in our own Gemara, testimony in a whole bunch of places, the Sukkah and Yuba, a bunch of other places that this actually happened. And so what happened later is 200 years after Rome was sacked, the Vatican was being set up in Rome. And the Vatican was being set up very close to, or maybe on top of, very close to the Emperor's palace. So it's not like the Vatican's, I keep saying this, it's not like they stole items. They really inherited them from the emperors in Rome. They found them in this cave, and Benjamin of Benjamin of Tudela, Benjamin, who was he was a famous traveler in the medieval times. I think it was the 12th century. He writes, Benjamin of Tudela, yeah. He writes that he saw this cave where Titus put the items. He actually saw it. And don't forget, that was about 200 years before the Pope set up office at the Vatican. They lived in across Rome, another place, and the St. John's Lateran, which the Catholics were there too at one point. And anyway, they ended up at the Vatican, where it is today. So it's very interesting, but they definitely have it. And I interviewed someone that was down there. It's another unbelievable story. This happened in the 1960s. You have different reports, you have that incredible report, and I have his picture up here of the chief rabbi of Libya, of Buzaku. I have his actual name in the book. Anyway, he's the chief rabbi of Libya in 1930, and it tells how he went down there. He's a friend of the king of Italy, of Emmanuel Victoria III. Anyway, sent him down and he says, I saw what I saw. He writes this. He writes, Ra'iti dai, or Yotermi dai. And after that, his Talmudim says he came out, his face was shining, and he went on a fast. He went on, it's a fact, on a Chinese dibur, and he didn't speak a word until he passed away 40 days later.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you have these accounts for sure.
And we have also more recently, Rabbi Getz and Rabbi Goren. Now, for those who don't know, Rabbi Goren was the chief rabbi of Israel at the time of the liberation of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, one of the weirdest moves that the Jews did in 1967 after conquering Jerusalem, when the whole world thought we would run up the mountain and build the temple, was establish the Jewish Heritage Foundation of the Western Wall, which was the exile mentality of
For
not to.
sure.
But Rev Gurin and Rev Getz went looking for the treasures under the Dome of the Rock, under
Right.
the
At two
temple, and
different
they
times.
actually claimed to have found it. And there's actually videos of Rev Gurin
Right.
speaking about this.
Right.
So is that another direction that you've looked as well?
For sure. For sure. There's over 50 tunnels underneath Harbayit. And hey, you know what? Hold on a second. Actually, I happen to have a map right here. I don't know if you could see that.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
we could put that in the video, like nicer on the screen. Yeah, sure.
right. Okay. Yeah. So
Send
this
it to
has
me.
my opinion of the Makom Mikdash and the Dome of the Rock over here. This is also the opinion of the Rosh or the Rambam. And Arizal says, and the Marshan, that the Dome of the Rock was not the Makom Mikdash. We have an amazing book that just came out, No Yoshal Olam, that proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Makom Mikdash was not the Dome of the Rock. It was actually right about here, where I put it, a little further to the southwest.
I got mine from Rabbi Gurin's book. Yeah,
Awesome.
he
Awesome.
has. So we both got the maps. But
Great.
so
So
Reb Gurin goes looking for the Ark. Did he find the Ark?
I don't think so. I mean, I have that. I have his manuscript here, and I have, the movie that with Rob Getz. That was in 1981. Rabbi Goren was in 1968. But both of them were on the right track. They went through Warren's Gate, which is sister number 30, according to Charles Warren, that was actually, mapped out the whole thing 150 years ago as part of the Palestine Exploration Fund. But he too was looking for the Ark, Queen Victoria. That was the secret behind it all. But that's sister number 30, which is Warren's Gate. Now you know, without getting into the whole story, Rabbi Goren said this might be the place, and he started going through it. And he later was stopped by the Arabs, etc. And they put up a cement, something very, not really kavua. And he basically stopped looking for it. But Rabbi Getz, the head of the chief rabbi of the Western Wall and holy places, after the first Intifada, the first Lebanon war, so he actually went in and he broke down. This is Erev Rosh Hashanah, and they were doing slichas, and no one, midnight, no one could hear anything. So he broke through that, and they cleared the water. It's an incredible story. I have it also written there. And he says, yes, I went through once they cleared all the water out, it was an old entrance to the Temple Mount. It's not Caponius Gate, by the way. It says in the Minos and Tamid. It's not according to my theory. But they went in. It's one of the entrances to the Temple Mount. And they say that from there, they saw a tunnel going to the south, which makes total sense, according to my theory anyway as well. And from there, they saw something glittering, may have been the Arna Kodesh. But I think that's not, I don't think that's, but look, he was a great tzaddik, that's for sure. But I'm a little bit skeptical because, look, just like the Knights Templar, the Crusaders, and the Mussolini, and even Hitler, they were all looking for the Ark, just like Raiders of the Lost Ark, in the movie. They were also looking underneath Harbayit, okay? The reason why they didn't find it, I think, one of the reasons is because they're all looking for this golden chest, with the staves. But no, it says in many places, including the Malbim, on Divrei Yamim and others, the Rambam, it says that the Ark itself was lowered into a place which is a chamber, part of the Beis Hamikdash itself, and it's actually, it's considered what I call off-site, directly down underneath where the Kodesh HaKodeshim was and is, and it's in a chamber. It's not sitting in some cave. It's in a golden chamber, golden floor, just like it was right above it, with the same kedusha. And that, Rabbi Aaron, that's what binds all three temples together. The Baba Rebbe writes about this. Baba Shalom. He says that in the times of the Baisheni, of course, we didn't have the Arnapris, right? But it was directly below. But it was present in some form because without it, the Kohen couldn't continue their service, their avoda. You need the Mizbech and you need
The
the
Aron.
Aron.
But
Yeah,
nobody would know that it was missing because only the
right.
Kohen would go in there. But
The
here's
public.
what's interesting, Rabbi
Yeah,
Harry, is
yeah,
that
yeah.
we're both from Beit Shemesh, and
Yeah,
in Tanakh, it tells the story that the Jews in the Mishkan of Shiloh, they decided to take the Aron, the Ark, to war,
Yeah.
and the Philistines captured it. Now, when they decided, the Philistines started to get plagues. Okay, they got all different stomach diseases, and they had
Sure.
problems. And they took the Aron and they put it with oxen, and they
Right.
sent. Now, naturally, it went to Beit Shemesh, where you and I are both from Beit Shemesh.
Right.
When we learned this in our Chabura that we learned, so I think Pshat is that if it came to us, that Beit Shemesh should have the ability to fix it. Otherwise, even though we had sinned at the time that we didn't offer enough respect, we tried to look at it or tried to, we
Right.
didn't, but because it came to Beit Shemesh, so maybe we are fixing this sin of Beit Shemesh by treating it with respect and bringing, and you for sure, you spent the better part of your existence in Beit Shemesh and around Israel, traveling, looking for these artifacts. So to answer the original question we started with, have we found the lost artifacts? I think you would say we have.
I think so. We found that, look, only Eliyahu Navi knows for sure where the Ark is and the artifacts. I'm just saying, but according to the theory and all of everything, the evidence, I haven't seen it with my eyes yet anyway, but sure we did. We found it in the Vatican. We know pretty much that they're there. It's undeniable anymore. The St. Anne's Church, I was down there, I was in there, and I saw this door, you know, and it's owned, by the way, by the French consulate. It's the French, that church, the whole property is owned by the French. They have 4 properties in Jerusalem. Just letting you know that they really have the purview of that church. And the other one in Rahabia, definitely, it's in a one of a dozen caves, and we're on the trail. And like you said, under Harabayit, it says in Gemara Sota, Daf Tet at the bottom there, that the Mishkan, that the Krashim of the Mishkan and the Adanim, and that the whole, the courtyard is underneath Harabayit. It says that straight out in the Gemara. So there are tunnels that lead there, and no question about it. But some of them I know I've outlined. Maybe that'll be in my next book. Tunnels number 1 and 3 that go right underneath and double the rock, and that'll lead to the Ark. We're closer than ever. But you should know, don't try this at home, I say in my lectures. But there are tunnels that you can get to that I've seen with my own eyes that are there underneath Harabayit, and the government knows about it. And it's just a matter of time, really. I think we need the Achdus. I think it really, I think it's up to us, because once we find these things, then what? We can't fight about it. The chief rabbi Ashkenazi can't fight with the chief who it belongs to. The Vatican, I spoke with the heads of the Jewish community in Rome. They believe that those kelim belong to them. Once we get them out, or, with this, or an exhibition or whatever, we want to do it. By the way, it takes money, and that's exactly what's going to get these people to do it.
Also the consensus among the non-Jews, the Noahites, the religious Zionist Christians, who will all probably watch this video with such excitement to learn about your work. And if you haven't read this book, there's a long Shabbos this week. Get the book, find the book. If you can't find it, I'll leave a link. You could order it. And it will literally open your eyes about so many things that have happened already in discovery and witnesses, testimony. There's a new book out. The book you said is called The Vatican Me, about his stories, about your stories, going and searching and seeing if we can come up with a plan to either, as you said, financially raise the money to redeem these lost artifacts.
It's just driving them. Literally, it's that simple. The people are
right, and there needs to be a consensus, just like with the red heifer that has drawn a lot of attention. Right. The red heifer in America, the red heifers in Israel, all these, and also Vendel Jones, his search. I haven't met him, but my dad did spend many times.
Really?
My dad loves going to the Quran, to the Qumran caves, and he's gone with him on these exhibitions. and it's real.
Wow.
There's like real evidence of the Ketoris ashes.
Yeah.
And this was something that people got rich from. They would argue and fight over who gets to make it because
Right.
it really made you rich. And that was really
See
all
this.
this awakening, all this stuff that's happening right now is definitely the sign of the awakening of the Jewish people, awakening of all the world, because the Mashiach is not just for the Jews. The Mashiach,
Right.
the Jewish
The whole
people,
world.
and the Mashiach comes at the end of a cycle. So, if you could lead us
Right.
out with maybe perhaps a vision of what the next step is for redeeming these lost objects.
Well, practically speaking, besides the bribing part, which is practically speaking what we need for the people that are in charge of it right now, all these places, there's a machlokas between the Rambam and Rashi and Tosafos about, do we actually have an obligation today to build the Beis Hamikdash? And Rambam says yes, we'll build it ourselves. And Rashi and Tosafos say that it'll come from Shemayim with fire, right? And the Ramchal writes in Mishkanei Elyon, an incredible sefer, that both are possible. That the one from Shammai will extend, the celestial temple will extend down to earth, and ours will be built, or it'll be maybe it'll be lacking something, but we'll have something to do to fix it, to be mushlam. Anyway, um, at the end of the day, it says that when the majority of Jews come to Israel, okay, now we're, from what I understand, you correct me if I'm wrong, we're like on the verge. Like this, at some periods where, yes, we have the majority of Jews finally after 2,000 years in Israel, and some say not. But I remember the headlines, Jerusalem Post, a couple of years before Corona, it said, yes, majority of Jews are finally, if that's the truth, then all of a sudden, Chala and Yovel and Shemitah, they become Deraisa. What are the other things that come to
And
rice?
Korban Pesach,
Right.
we can start.
Absolutely.
Sam
Korban
Sofer
Pesach.
wrote with Rabbi Akiva Eger about doing Korban Pesach.
Yes.
Now we have the
Excellent.
B'nai Kahuna, and we don't need the red heifer to do that. By the way, you
Right.
know,
Very
as
good.
Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi came to tell us that Tuma Hutra B'tzibur, which
Ah,
means we don't need the red heifer, and to tell
right.
us Kriven Afal Bi She'ein Sham Bayis, that we can bring offerings even though there's no temple. So
Right.
these concepts have already been there, and like you said, we need the consciousness. So
That's it. That's exactly what I was just going to end with. I was going to say, so all of this is the maybe making Aliyah, come to Israel, where the majority of Jews are here, will be a turning point on many levels. And all of a sudden, it says, the Sanhedrin, according to the Chasam Sofer, the Sanhedrin has the chiyuv, or the melech, or the Beit Din, to actually build the Beis Hamikdash when the majority of Jews are in Israel. So that's very big. The first thing I would say is come here in Israel, because we're, like you said, we're the Geula, Barachamim Yirtzeh Hashem is coming. Second thing is tune into your show because you got the latest and the greatest people that are, all of us, we're on the leading edge. We're fighting. It's an uphill battle, and we're doing the work, and we're longing for the Shekhinah. And I'll just end with a bracha, if I could, that יהי רצון שיהיה גאולה שלמה ברחמים, and that Hashem accepts all of our efforts and uh, all of our kavanot. We should have shalom and achdut from here, B'Yameinu, Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. If you guys want to find out more about this, I'll leave a link in the description. You'll be able to see the website and see more about Third Temple and other projects going on right now. Thank you so much.